I'm Philip DeFries, and you are watching a television program called Our World Today. One of the first things I want to say to you today is that the word accountability seems to be at a premium amongst many, many people on planet Earth. And we need to understand something about accountability because it's what makes the world go round. If we don't have accountability, we have anarchy. That is the way I want to start the program today, because in the back of our minds, we need to know that in all of life, in the whole world, wherever we are today, accountability is something which we all need, whether it's in our business life, our church life, whether it's in our individual life, whether it's across the board in our political life. Accountability is the name of the game. And on that note, I'm finished with my sermonizing for the first minute.
It's about time. I'm sitting here with a mouthful of teeth, sitting here, smiling. Hey, everyone.
Having said all that, I want to turn to my friend Jacques van der Merwe and say to you, Jacques, thank you for coming on the show with me today.
It's always fun. Hey,
I had to really get you started on that because you needed to hear that as well as everybody else.
Accountability.
I mean, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think of somebody that comes onto a set with a black background and he's got black clothes on? At least he's got a shining face. And Damon is sitting in the background and he's smiling away.
I'm not going to do the Grease Lightning song again, all right? Oh. You can see me blushing already.
If
so
you start singing, I'm going to start harmonizing.
I'm adjusting my facial features that I'm like really blushing now, so everybody will be able to see me. How about
everybody knows what's going on with you these days. And you've got a change of life happening, and that's good. I'm glad. Very proud of you.
Yeah, a lot of things in my life have changed so far.
Yeah, I like your new jacket. It looks great.
Thank you. Apparently, I need to dress a little bit more stylish.
I am so glad. I've been hiding that emotion and giving you that sentiment for years on end. And finally, you're getting a little bit wakker, which means awake.
Yeah, I'm wakker. Yes.
Yeah, ultimo. All right.
This is going to be a good program.
I'm telling you, we're going to have
I like some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about.
Time because we've got a power-packed program today, and I think we have to begin with some of the things like I want you to talk a little bit about the article that appeared in the newspaper last week.
I knew you were going to ask that.
You have to.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we need to talk about our dear friend Philip DeFries here, who actually hit the newspaper for a change on giving him a little bit of exposure for all the hard work that he's been doing behind the scenes. Philip, tell me, you've been working behind the scenes with Johan Claassen and a couple of other people on really making not only the film studios happen, but in the process also the Destiny Africa project come alive. It's been alive since 2006, but now has got everything that it needs to go full on live. What was the purpose behind Destiny Africa? I want to ask you that because I know there is a big reason for that. Talk to me about that, please.
Well, if you look at it in the original sense, it was designed to literally put George on the map with bigger cities around the nation, and it was designed to be a pulling point from an educational vantage point, from an eco-friendly kind of a vantage point, but also from a educational side of things, because it was designed to really make some kind of a dramatic entrance into the entertainment world as well, so that it could all be inclusive. So with everything that's been happening at Paragat, we saw that there was a necessity for a new opportunity to arise, and that's when we started to revive the thinking about the necessity for looking into what was going on with Destiny Africa in times gone by.
Now, let me just be straight on with this. Destiny Africa, as well as the film thing, the big coming together, bringing it together kind of point was creating opportunities for people to better their lives through opportunities, whether it's construction or whatever can happen at Destiny Africa. So it's job creation, and the film industry is basically the same because film industry is even bigger. Now you put the two together and you get one big opportunity.
Actually, it's made it just it's just added to the quality of the original thing that they came up with conceptually.
Yeah.
And we're saying that the job market doesn't just get enhanced on a temporary basis, but on a permanent basis, because we've got all the original ideas are still there, like the convention center and like a concert hall and all kinds of things that are attached to that. But we also have that original concept of the creative university, which we believe will be absolutely magic for the film industry and the development of television and the development of animation and you name it. It's all part of this.
The weird part, and I presume that it's fine that we talk about this at this stage, is that there are also other university plans going on here in George, which is literally going to turn this city into a university city.
I really think that that's the game plan, and it's a good one, simply because you've got one university that's already in existence. I call it the most beautiful campus on planet Earth, and at Saasveld. I mean, it's magnificent.
And one of the strongest points there is nature
Totally.
Courses.
And there's business administration courses
and everything.
As well on that
Beautiful
one.
campus.
But now what's happened is that there's, along with the Creative University, which will receive support from outside the nation and inside the nation. From
So it's not
many
only
different-
going to be a national thing, it's literally international
Literally.
drawing card.
Why do we say that? Because it is being endorsed and backed and supported by all the BRICS nations.
Okay.
Because
That's a whole
this
bunch.
is the economic choice to bring the film industry not to China and not to Russia and not to India and not to Brazil, but to South Africa.
Which is a very
because,
good thing.
I mean, and bringing it to this area is the most logical course because we have the most beautiful part of the world to operate in.
We do.
And we can bring all kinds of professionalism into it as well, along with the best of America, along with the best of Europe and many other parts of the world when it comes to filmmaking. I think Australians will be very tempted to come here, and they're not a small fry kind of an operation either. So I think this is the biggest economic development point
Stimulate there.
on the whole of the continent of Africa. And I've said that simply because Lagos might give some competition in Nigeria, but really, when it all is said and done, this is the complete picture. On top of that, there's another university that's being planned to come in here, which will take some of the areas that Nelson Mandela University does not have, which the Creative University will not have, and will put it right next to the Garden Route Dam, which I think is a perfectly ideal
It is
place.
a beautiful area.
I mean, you can't ask for a better scenario.
Yeah,
I mean, like Philip Molefe, our friend, that came from out of our contacts with the original Destiny Africa, is the National Video and Film Foundation kind of chairman.
Yeah.
And he is our man that has said that we're talking about at least 50,000 jobs right here in this
That's a lot.
one complex.
Yeah. Now, I'm pretty sure we're going to be talking about this development as it goes on over the next couple of months.
Yes.
Let's switch over to the other hot topic in the world at this stage, or shall we say in America at this stage, is the whole thing about abortions.
Yes.
Now, it's very interesting for me. Can we talk about what is it really all about? Because how can you be for abortions? How can you be for killing a child? And I think that's the whole discussion about women have rights. Talk to me about that one.
I think, personally, I think it's the whole thing about abortion is that it's taken feminism, which is anti-men,
Yeah.
because that's what feminism is about. It's anti-men. And what it's done, it's given it an injection of hormones to kind of take it further and say, this is my body, and nobody can take my rights for my body away from me. And the abortion industry says that the mother is more important than that little child. And to me, that's a sick.
It's inconceivable.
It is.
Inconceivable.
And it's interesting because our current Attorney General that was just planted just in recent months, Mr. Barr, was actually confronted by this when he was the previous Attorney General back in the George Bush days. And he was confronted by that whole thing. And of course, he personally was talking about the frustration of the law. As Attorney General, he would know something about that. But he was also addressing the fact that from his personal side, it cannot be defended. The whole abortion industry cannot defend Roe versus Wade, which is a Supreme Court ruling. But that is something which I believe is the spirit behind this whole thing, because you know as well as I know that Donald Trump is blatantly anti-abortion. He's anti. And he's come out and said it. So why do we have this campaign? Because what's happening in the United States is that Hollywood liberationists and all Rush Limbaugh calls them the feminazis. I always love that. I love the way he goes after that. But I mean, fearlessly going after the feminazis. But the point is that little life has been seen as precious. Some of the states are now, because of Mr. Trump's stand, are coming out and saying, we stand with you, so that when there is life within a few weeks of that baby being conceived of, it should be protected and not aborted.
And it's murder.
That's what it is.
But that's the interesting thing, because now there is this whole tennis playing match going on, where it's from the one state to the other state to another state, and each one is trying. And now you've got companies like Disney not working with certain states because they are against abortion and things like that. And it doesn't make sense, because I mean, your responsibility is, if you are gonna get pregnated, that's your choice. It's your, I don't want to say mistake, but you chose to do that.
Yeah.
If somebody gets in trouble and there's a rape case or something like that, I might say yes, but even then think about it and things. But otherwise, it was your choice. So now you want to kill this kid just because you made a choice that you don't like, and now you want to go back on it. It's really, really unfair.
Yeah. Brent Bozell, or Roselle, Bozell, that's right. Brent wrote an article in Archimex, and he talked about this whole issue with the liberal Hollywood people. What sickened me was Miley Cyrus.
Yeah.
Miley Cyrus, people say, but she just does what she does because it gives her publicity. But the fact of the matter is, she's going against the faith of her fathers. She's going against it.
Yeah.
There's something that has taken a stand. And, you know, from the time when she was on the Disney Channel in her early days, she's now come out with a commercial that shows her licking a white cake with the sides covered with rainbow sprinkles that read, "Abortion is health care." Abortion is health care. So, I mean, it's totally, I mean, here you're using a birthday cake for babies that will never have a birthday. And that's
That is
sick.
incredible. But you see, that's a problem with Hollywood. Just because they say this is how it is, now everybody needs to follow them and things. And you know what?
Yeah.
That will come to an end at some stage.
Yeah, and I think it's time for people that of faith that are part of this whole conviction about the sanctity of every life. Every life, even the unborn child. I mean, one of the workers that we have at the place where I have my office, I saw her, this beautifully pregnant lady today. Oh, bless her little heart. And I'm looking at her and saying, Rosemary, God bless you. You're having your second baby now. And that baby is going to be so special. Why? Because it's going to come into a very loving and beautiful atmosphere. And it didn't matter what the conception is like, and that every single mama needs to recognize that there's something beautiful that is sitting there. And that's what we've got to fight for.
Yeah, and it's worth fighting for.
Yeah.
What else are we talking about, Uncle Philip?
Well, you know what? There's a guy, his name is Chris Vallotton, and he has a lot to do with different churches, and he goes around. And he talked about a serial killer. That's
A serial
killer that is rampant in the world today. But it wasn't just narrowing it down to one thing, but he talked about how believing parents sanctify the home, but he also talked about the converse side of things, where, you know, if one is an unbeliever, the other parent, the Bible talks about in Corinthians, about that other parent who is not a believer and is caught up in a bondage of some kind, then, you know, there's that transmission into the family values. Because if the one is sanctified and set aside for God and the other one is not, then the mother or the father, who is the sanctified one, has just got that much more of an effort to try to make sure that the kids are not polluted in some way. And that's a key factor, because you and I both know that we want our values as parents to be transmitted into our children.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes they will be rebels against that, and we will see that, which is not easy for mom and dad. But the fact is, when I see certain values in my kids that are being transcended to move into a wild and woolly kind of a place, then I've got to start looking at my values. Am I transmitting something? And I want life to be transmitted. And so Chris Vallotton talks about how pornography, for instance, can become a serial killer when moms or dads are afflicted with this. And more we're seeing this. So but it's not just pornography. There's more to it than that. And because there's alcoholism that can also become, you know
what,
an addiction there.
I always say you can only give what you have.
Yeah.
And what you fill your heart and your life with is the only thing that you can give.
Yeah.
I don't know if now's the best time to talk about this, but a lot of people know that recently I lost my mother, and
Yes.
She was the most amazing person in my life.
Yes.
Her and my dad had the most amazing relationship. From the get-go, they were just so much in love. And he took care of her. She was sick for 51 years with rheumatoid arthritis that really brought up a whole bunch of other conditions as well. And he stuck with her all those years. And you know what? I really feared the day when she would pass away. And you know what? Suddenly God has brought in this whole piece about it.
Yes.
And the whole piece of her crossing over to that side, and the reality of what we've got to do with. God has put in me what I needed to survive a time like this.
Yes.
And at the funeral, I realized there was this one man that was totally devastated because my mom has died. Everybody dies. It's such a bad thing that happens. But you know what? What he's got inside of him, he can only give that out. I realized, and I told the man, you know what? God has put in me this total understanding, this total reality of my mom passing over to the heavenly realms with him.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. That is my reality. And I realized this poor man, that's all that he can give, because that's all that he has. And I realized this big difference between people that totally have God in their lives and experience him and has him can really have that. You can only give what you've got.
Fascinating that you talk about that, because as Christians, we see things objectively. People that are not in that mode think subjectively. They think about themselves. They think about their own particular world that they live in, and it's a very limited world when all is said and done. I think what is very clear is that when a person walks through that valley of the shadow of death that the Bible talks about,
Yes.
you know, you're walking in that valley, you will fear no evil. So
Yes.
fear is gone,
Yes.
because there's another thing. Looking at things objectively, you begin to realize, wow, no more pain, no more sorrow. Everything that I've experienced in this world, all the years of anguish, has now been totally annihilated
Yeah.
in the light of the glory and the grace of God. What marvelous thing.
Absolutely.
And-
And you know what? That is almost my challenge that I have with people that they say that they believe, Christians. Is it really a reality to you to such an extent that for me, my mom is not dead. She's
Yeah.
not here with me
Yeah.
anymore, but she's in heaven.
Yeah,
And I
perfected.
even believe that if I ask God to send her a message, if it's His choice, He will give it to her. And she is still here. I know it. I believe that she's experiencing it. And so for me, it's a different outlook on it. I'm very sad. I'm going to miss her like crazy. But you know what? I know she's better off where she is.
Well-
and my wish is that more people can experience that reality.
Yeah, and you know, there's a song that says, "When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory." And I mean, well, we can already do that.
Yes.
We can stand. I mean, I listened to the tape of my dad's funeral, which I did not attend because I was here in South Africa and he was in the States.
Okay.
And I thought to myself, man, I got the atmosphere of that funeral, which was so full of joy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a marvelous. It was almost like a celebration.
And that's what it's supposed
Yeah,
to be.
it's really
a
like that.
celebration. My
Yeah.
mom had such a full life. It's a celebration, and a lot of people don't see that.
Yeah.
It's just a sad day.
Well, we're pressing on,
Let's press on.
and we've got certain things. And one of the things I wanted to say, just as a footnote to what we were just talking about, it said something about don't make decisions in your pain,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
seek
yes.
wise
Yes.
counsel.
Yes.
And
yes.
in that pain of whatever you're going through, whatever your bondage is, share it. Don't be afraid of it. There's always somebody that's going to listen and is going to offer wise advice.
Absolutely.
One of the things in talking through these things, we need to do what African Shlope talked about.
That is an interesting guy. I
He's
tell
an
you what.
amazing guy.
Africa. I mean, I've been watching his Facebook posts, and he's not afraid to tell it as it is.
Tell it like it is.
And he kind of he had something to say about this whole Australian deal with Israel.
He did with
this is
Israel Folau.
Yeah, so it's not the country Israel; it's the rugby player Israel.
Yeah, and from Australia, probably the most prolific point try scorer they call it in rugby in the history of the game of rugby.
Yeah,
If it wasn't for Israel Folau, Australia would be in the doldrums. And now that they've taken a decision against Israel, whatever their loss is going to be somebody else's gain,
yeah.
because he's taken a stand about homosexuality.
Okay, and but was that really his focus to take a stand against it, or he just shared a Bible verse with whatever purpose to it,
Yeah,
and then he
people
got
need to
flagged.
realize the Bible is not against anyone. And
It's actually for
Jesus
everyone.
died for everyone.
Yes.
But when you start talking about certain subjects these days, people get hypersensitive, including the liberal media
Yeah.
that we've often
Very
talked
much.
about.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
they begin to make a mountain out of a molehill.
Yes.
And so what happens is that it forces an issue to come about, and Israel lost his place on the Australian rugby team.
Yeah.
I think what was very, very clear is that he began to start to call, what the Bible called male and female,
Yeah.
created them, and he began to say that God meant for them to come together, and he began to define it in a very clear way. Didn't say that he was going to withdraw himself from all the different people,
Yeah.
but I think the one thing that he really began to challenge people about is, let's make sure that if we're going to talk about this matter of morality, let's do it from a biblical vantage point.
Because that is his choice.
It is his choice, and
That's his belief.
he's very strongly gone into that. So I think what we need to look at is this, that Afram Shlope just pointed out. He says, I disagree that intersex occurrence is so prevalent as to invalidate gender distinction. It doesn't invalidate the distinction. More and more there's studies that are coming out about the whole thing of gender distinction.
Yeah.
And those studies indicate very clearly that there's a very strong connection, no matter what your behavior might be like, but there's no such thing as an intersex individual. There's male and female, and backs up what the Bible says. And beside that, he just made this statement: I believe that the issue of gender identity is more psychological than physiological.
Yeah.
Our response as Christians should be twofold. We need to maintain biblical truth while remaining considerate of the feelings of others. I'm not going to turn away from a homosexual or transgender or whatever, because that's their choice. But what he says, I think, is very clear. Balancing these two ensures that we can face up to political correctness while extending compassion and care to those who suffer from gender dysphoria. That's a big word, which indicates that there's certain things that are not quite as strong in some people as they are in others.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think that we need to take a look at that. We need to understand it. And please give a response.
I would almost want to say, with a couple of the people that was mentioned in the media thus far, that decided to go public with their kids' choice of gender and how they respect their kids' choice of gender.
Yeah.
I think that is a total fluke.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, parents are supposed to give guidelines
Yeah.
to the kids,
Yeah.
not kids to the parents.
Yes.
It is your responsibility as parent, even if you make the biggest mistakes in your life with that kid, because face it, we don't really get a manual to how to bring up kids. But you know what? If there is one thing that we do know, is that the Bible says you need to take care and teach and guide your children to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
And by saying, I chose to listen to my 3-year-old son that decided that he's actually a girl, and so I respected him, that is
Absolute talk.
dis amper sê ek
I said it right.
Yes. Let's leave it at that before I get pharmaceutical. Yes.
Pharmacological.
Yes, that's
whatever.
yeah. But yeah, I don't agree with that. I think a parent should really take a stand and guide their kids
Yeah,
and
we
really
agree.
teach them and bring them up to the best of their ability.
And on that note, thank you for that that conviction. We have to wind up here very quickly.
Okay.
I want to say to everybody, don't forget, we all need to have accountability. We talk to each other, we speak to each other, and we're needing to have an understanding of the ways of God. And we want to thank you, particularly for joining us on this wonderful day. And we want to encourage you to just keep telling people, subscribe on YouTube to Our World Today, Philip DeVries or DeVries, to those of my watchers or viewers that come from the United States of America.
Not deep freeze, but DeVries.
DeVries or DeVries. And we just want to ask you to please do that, because it's important to get what is happening here, because we want to extend it, and there's so much more that we can handle if we can start getting more responses. So please join us again next week at the same time. And thank you for being a part of this support team. And let's hear from you. Let's get your questions. Send them our way. We're not afraid of that. We'll handle any subject anyway, no matter what it is. And on that note, thank you. Goodbye for now. Be blessed and have a great week further.